The sound of the wind greets you. A low, gentle hum moves across the stone walls. You are standing at the edge of a great medieval castle, tall, cold, and ancient. The moonlight touches the towers, making the gray stones shimmer like silver. The air smells of wood smoke and iron. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the faint echo of horses in the stable, tired from the long day's work. You slowly push open the heavy wooden gate. It creaks, a deep, echoing sound that feels centuries old. Inside, torches burn along the stone corridor. Their light dances softly across the walls, revealing carvings, banners, and old shields that once belonged to knights who never returned. You walk forward, feeling the chill of the stone beneath your feet. Every step echoes, as if the castle itself listens to you. At the corner, an old servant passes by, carrying a bucket of water. He nods politely, avoiding eye contact. In these times, silence was respect. You follow the corridor until it opens into the great hall. Long wooden tables stretch from one side to another, candles burning low at their ends. The smell of roasted meat and spiced wine still lingers in the air, signs that dinner ended not long ago. On the far wall, a huge fireplace glows, its flames dancing beneath a massive stone arch. You can almost hear the laughter that filled this room a few hours ago. Nobles feasting, musicians playing, stories shared under the dim candlelight. Now, all is quiet. Only the crackle of fire remains. You walk closer to the hearth. The warmth touches your hands, fighting the chill. A cat sleeps nearby, curled in comfort. From outside, a bell rings once. Midnight. The castle begins to rest. In the shadows, you notice the guards changing shifts. Two men walk along the ramparts, lanterns in hand, scanning the dark forests beyond the walls. They talk softly about ghosts, of soldiers who still roam the fields where they died. One laughs nervously, the other doesn't reply. You move up the spiral staircase. The steps are narrow, uneven, worn by hundreds of years of footsteps. The air grows colder the higher you go. Finally, you reach the tower chamber. Small, round, with a single window facing the valley. You can see the moon resting over the forest, the mist rolling gently across the trees. You sit on the old stone bench, close your eyes, and listen. Somewhere below, a dog barks once. Somewhere further, a door shuts slowly. And then, only silence remains. The silence of a medieval night, deep, endless, and full of stories waiting to be told. You are safe here. For now.
You step through an archway of cold stone and enter the great hall. The first thing you notice is the warmth. A great fire burns in the center, the flames reflecting off iron pots, brass cups, and silver plates. The light flickers gently, painting the walls with orange and gold. Above you hangs a grand wooden ceiling, dark with smoke and time. Thick beams cross each other like the ribs of a giant beast. From them hang banners, red, gold, and black, each carrying the symbol of the family who rules this place. The hall smells faintly of roasted meat and spiced wine. Dinner has ended, but the scent still lingers, heavy and warm. You walk slowly between two long wooden tables. The tables are empty now, but you can still see the traces of the feast. Half-burned candles, crumbs of bread, a forgotten goblet lying on its side. The silence is deep. Yet it's not empty. It's filled with the quiet presence of history. You imagine how this place looked just a few hours ago. The nobles in fine clothes, the servants rushing to pour wine, the laughter echoing through the hall. Musicians in the corner playing soft tunes on lutes and flutes. You can almost hear it. The clinking of cups, the sound of a knife cutting through roasted meat, the murmur of voices blending into one another. But now the hall sleeps. The candles burn low, their wax dripping slowly down. The shadows dance lazily on the floor, moving like old memories. At the far end of the hall sits a throne, not the kind of gold and jewels, but made of oak, strong and plain. A fur blanket lies draped across it, and behind it hangs a tapestry showing knights riding into battle. The colors are faded now, but the courage still lives in the threads. You walk closer, hearing the faint sound of your footsteps echo through the space. The hall feels endless. You pause before the throne and look around, imagining the Lord who sits here each day. He listens to petitions, settles disputes, and guards the peace of this small world. Behind the power, he too is human, tired, old, and perhaps lonely. The castle may look grand, but life within it is hard. The stone is always cold, the wind never truly silent. You hear the faint creak of a door behind you. A servant enters quietly, carrying a small lantern. He moves with care, gathering the plates, the cups, the bits of bread left behind. He doesn't notice you, or maybe he pretends not to. The fire crackles once, louder this time. Sparks rise up the chimney, disappearing into the darkness above. You take a slow breath, feeling the warmth fade as you turn to leave. The great hall stands behind you, proud and silent, like a heart that never stops beating. You step back into the cold corridor. The stone floor chills your feet again. Somewhere far above, a bell rings once, the signal for the night watch to begin. And as you walk toward the spiral stairs, you whisper to yourself, "This castle never sleeps. It only dreams."
The spiral staircase winds upward, narrow and cold. Each step echoes softly beneath your feet. The air grows thinner as you climb, filled with the scent of stone and iron. A torch flickers along the wall, its flame swaying with every breath of wind that slips through the cracks. You reach the top, the guard tower. The night stretches endlessly in all directions. Beneath you lies the sleeping valley, covered in mist. The forest beyond looks like a dark ocean, rising and falling with the hills. Two guards stand near the edge, wrapped in heavy cloaks. Their breath turns to white clouds in the cold air. One leans on his spear, the other keeps his hand near the lantern. They talk quietly, their voices calm but tired. "The wind is colder tonight," one says. "A storm's coming," the other replies, glancing at the dark horizon. You walk closer, feeling the chill bite at your skin. The guards nod at you politely. Visitors at night are rare, but not unwelcome. You stand beside them, looking out over the land. The moon glows behind a veil of thin clouds, its light silvering the roofs of the castle below. From up here, you can see the watchfires burning along the outer walls, small orange dots glowing in the distance. The guards take turns walking the path, their shadows sliding across the battlements. The castle never truly sleeps.
someone is always awake, watching, guarding, waiting. You listen to the sounds around you, the gentle clink of armor as a guard shifts his stance, the soft creak of wood as the wind pushes against the door, the faraway cry of a wolf in the forest. For a moment, you close your eyes and imagine what it must feel like to live this life, to spend every night under the open sky, to know the sound of danger before you see it, to trust the silence more than the noise. The older guard stares into the darkness. "Once," he says quietly, "this castle saw battle. The fields were full of torches. The air was full of screams." His voice fades, almost like he's talking to the night itself. The younger one says nothing. He just looks out, gripping his spear a little tighter. You can almost see it in your mind. Armies marching through the mist, banners waving, arrows flying through the air like silent shadows. But that was long ago. Now only peace remains, or something close to it. The bell rings once from the lower tower, one slow, deep note. The guards straighten, checking their posts. Then the sound fades, swallowed by the wind. You step back toward the stairs. The flame of the torch trembles as you pass, whispering against the cold stone. Behind you, the guards remain, two silent figures against the vast, sleeping world. As you descend, the sound of your steps blends with the rhythm of the castle itself, steady, ancient, alive. The night continues, and the castle keeps its watch.
You descend the spiral staircase, the cold stone walls swallowing your footsteps. The torchlight flickers along the rough surface, casting fleeting shadows that seem to watch you. At the bottom, a narrow corridor opens into a small, walled courtyard. It is hidden from the main hall, a quiet corner of the castle few ever see. Moonlight spills through the open archway, touching the cobblestones with a silver glow. The air smells faintly of damp earth and moss, with the lingering warmth of the day slowly fading. A fountain sits at the center, dry now, its carved stone figures frozen in eternal motion. Ivy climbs the walls, wrapping the ancient bricks in dark green patterns. A cat slinks across the courtyard, silent and cautious, its eyes gleaming like tiny lanterns. You pause, watching it disappear into a shadowed corner, vanishing as if it were never there. The quiet is almost overwhelming. No guards patrol this space. No torches burn here. Only the soft whistle of the wind and the distant creak of the castle above remind you that you are not alone. On the far side, an arched door stands slightly ajar. Its iron hinges are old, rusted, and groan softly as the wind pushes against the frame. You approach slowly, curiosity tightening around your chest. Inside, the room is dark and empty, yet the air hums with an unseen presence. Cobwebs hang from the ceiling like delicate curtains, and dust motes drift lazily in the faint moonlight. The stone floor is cold, uneven, and worn smooth by countless footsteps over centuries. A sudden draft brushes past you, carrying with it a faint echo, perhaps a whisper, or just the wind through the cracks. You hold your breath, listening. The silence stretches and bends around you, thick with memories you cannot see but somehow feel. You move back into the courtyard, letting your eyes adjust to the night. The fountain stone figures seem almost alive under the moon's pale light. One appears to be turning, forever reaching for water that never flows.
Somewhere above, a window opens and a faint candle light flickers. You wonder who might be watching, if anyone at all, or if the castle itself keeps its secrets close, preferring shadows to company. A branch scrapes softly against the outer wall. You turn, but see nothing. The mist from the valley drifts upward, curling around the edges of the courtyard like ghostly fingers. You take a step forward, feeling the cool cobblestones under your boots. It is easy to imagine life here long ago. Children running through the halls, servants hurrying with lanterns, the quiet clatter of soldiers' armor. And yet the echoes of the past feel alive tonight, pressing against the present. The moon dips behind a cloud, leaving the courtyard in near complete darkness. You breathe deeply, tasting the cold, damp air, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down. Then, quietly, you notice the tiniest movement, a shadow shifting near the fountain. You freeze, heart thudding, but it is only the cat again, circling, silent, disappearing as suddenly as it came. The courtyard remains still, timeless, watching. It does not rush. It does not speak. It simply exists, a hidden fragment of the castle's soul. Reluctantly, you move toward the stair that leads back to the main hall. The night holds you in its embrace for a moment longer, whispering secrets of history and solitude. And as you leave, you realize that some places are meant to be discovered, if only briefly, before the shadows reclaim them. The castle waits, and the hidden courtyard waits with it.
You push open the heavy wooden door at the far end of the hallway. It groans on its hinges, a low, mournful sound that echoes through the empty corridors. Inside, the old library stretches before you, a labyrinth of shelves rising toward the vaulted ceiling. Dust hangs in the air, shimmering faintly in the pale moonlight that filters through tall, arched windows. The scent of aged parchment and leather fills your nose, a mixture of history and quiet decay. Books of every size and shape crowd the shelves, some stacked neatly, others leaning as if they might fall at any moment. The floorboards creak beneath your boots, and the faint scratching of a quill seems to echo from somewhere long gone. A single candle burns on a table in the center of the room. Its flame dances, casting shifting shadows that twist like living things across the walls. The silence is heavy, as though the library itself is holding its breath. You walk slowly between the shelves, fingertips brushing the spines of countless volumes. Some titles are faded, their letters worn into near illegibility. Others are embossed in gold, still gleaming faintly despite the passage of centuries. A sudden draft rustles the pages of an open book nearby. You glance down. The text is written in a language you do not know, symbols curling and twisting like smoke on the page. The candle flickers, and for a moment it seems as if the words themselves are moving, reaching toward you. You step back, heart quickening, and hear a faint whisper, almost imperceptible, carried by the shifting air. It could be the wind, or it could be something else entirely. You cannot tell, and yet a shiver runs down your spine. A ladder leans against a shelf, leading to a narrow balcony high above. You climb slowly, feeling the old wood groan under your weight. From this height, the library feels endless, a tower of knowledge and secrets stacked one upon another. Cobwebs hang like silken curtains, and the shadows of the shelves stretch endlessly, dark corridors in miniature. You pause at the railing, looking down at the table below, candlelight reflecting off the polished surfaces of the books. It is easy to imagine scholars and scribes here long ago, working through nights lit only by flickering flames.
The ghosts of their labor seem to linger, quiet and watchful, blending into the silence. From somewhere deep within the library, a sound, a soft thump, echoes through the room. You hold your breath, listening. Another thump, then silence. It could be the settling of the building, or something more deliberate. You cannot tell.
You step out of the library, the heavy door closing behind you with a muted thud. The corridor stretches ahead, dimly lit by torches set in iron sconces. Their flames flicker, casting shadows that dance across the cold stone walls. Ahead lies a massive arched doorway, slightly cracked and almost hidden behind faded tapestries. You push it open, and a draft greets you, carrying the scent of dust, old wood, and something faintly metallic. Beyond the doorway stretches the forgotten hall, vast, silent, and abandoned. Columns rise like ancient sentinels, their capitals carved with intricate patterns now worn by time. The floor is stone, smooth in places, broken and uneven in others. Broken chairs and toppled tables lie scattered, remnants of feasts long past. Cobwebs stretch across the corners, shimmering faintly in the moonlight that streams through the high windows. The silence is profound. Even your footsteps seem to pause before reaching the far wall. A wind drifts through the hall, carrying with it whispers that seem almost human, laughter, murmurs, sighs, fading before you can recognize them. You walk slowly, fingers grazing the edges of the tall windows. The glass is cracked in places, and the moonlight streams through in jagged shafts, illuminating the hall in pale silver patterns. Shadows shift unnaturally, stretching like fingers across the floor. At the center of the hall lies a grand fireplace, cold and dark. Its carved mantel depicts scenes of battles and hunts, warriors frozen in eternal struggle. Ashes from centuries past are scattered across the hearth, fine gray dust covering the floor nearby. The air feels heavier here, charged with memory and long-forgotten voices. A sudden clatter echoes from the far end of the hall, a chair tipping over, perhaps just the settling of the old building. You freeze, heart hammering, straining to hear. The sound fades, replaced by a low, distant hum, almost like the murmur of a crowd long gone. You move forward, drawn by a faint glimmer along the far wall. There, half hidden beneath a collapsed tapestry, is a narrow doorway. Its wood is cracked, darkened by age, the iron handle cold to the touch. You hesitate, feeling a strange pull, as if the hall itself is urging you to enter. Through the doorway, a spiral staircase descends into darkness. The stone steps are slick with damp, worn smooth by centuries of passage. You catch your reflection in the polished stone walls, pale and faint, like a ghost stepping into another ghost's home. Above, the hall stretches silently, waiting. Columns loom like silent watchers, shadows pooling in the corners. Broken furniture and faded tapestries speak of a life long ended, yet their presence feels almost alive. You pause, taking in the vast emptiness. It is easy to imagine the hall in its prime, laughter echoing from one end to the other, music floating from the corners, the clatter of dishes and the murmur of voices filling the space with life. And yet now there is only silence, punctuated by the occasional whisper of wind through cracked windows. A cold breeze brushes your cheek. You shiver, knowing that some places are not merely abandoned, but remembered, held in the memory of stone and shadow. Reluctantly, you turn back, retracing your steps through the hall. The torches flicker, casting long shadows behind you. The forgotten hall watches silently as you leave, its stories waiting patiently for the next visitor brave enough to enter. The castle endures. Its secrets sleep, layered in shadows and memory, waiting.
You leave the forgotten hall behind, stepping into a narrow corridor where shadows cling tightly to the walls. The air is cooler here, carrying a faint dampness that smells of stone and mildew. Torches line the walls, but their flames flicker nervously, as if uncertain whether to stay alight. The corridor stretches ahead, long and twisting, lined with closed doors on either side. The wood is dark and weathered, iron hinges rusted and groaning softly when nudged by the wind. The floor is uneven, stones worn smooth in the center from centuries of passage. As you walk, the faintest whispers reach your ears, barely audible, yet unmistakably human. They come and go, rising and falling like the murmur of a distant crowd. You strain to listen, but the words remain elusive, teasing the edges of understanding. A draft brushes past, carrying with it the scent of smoke and candle wax. The whispering grows a little louder, almost as if the corridor itself is speaking or remembering. You pause, pressing your ear to the cold stone wall. There is a rhythm to it, a faint cadence, like someone reciting names long forgotten. The doors along the corridor are closed, yet you feel the presence of what lies behind them. Some rooms may be empty, others filled with forgotten objects, and perhaps even memories that refuse to fade. One door has a small keyhole at eye level, rimmed with rust. Through it you glimpse darkness deeper than shadow, a void that seems to watch you back. Your footsteps echo softly, swallowed quickly by the length of the corridor. The flickering torchlight casts long, swaying shadows, and the whispers seem to come from every direction at once. You realize that the walls themselves might be holding voices, trapped in stone and mortar. A sudden scuff of movement makes you glance to the side, a shadow slipping past a doorway, quick and silent. You see nothing when you look again, yet the feeling of being observed lingers, prickling at your skin. At the far end of the corridor, a spiral staircase descends into darkness. The stone steps are slick, worn smooth by generations who have walked this path. A faint glow comes from below, warm and amber, contrasting with the cold, silvery light above. You descend carefully, every step echoing in the hollow shaft. The whispers follow you, rising and falling with the rhythm of your movement, like voices carried by the wind through narrow alleys of stone. You try to make sense of it, but it is impossible. Fragments of sentences, echoes of emotion, all blending into one haunting chorus. The staircase opens into a small chamber at the bottom, walls lined with shelves of dusty tomes and relics. A single candle burns in the center, its flame trembling as if resisting the darkness around it. The whispers seem to gather here, faint murmurs pooling in the corners, settling around the objects like invisible dust. You take a slow breath, letting your eyes adjust. The room is silent, yet the memory of sound hangs in the air, palpable and persistent. Each object, each book, seems to carry a fragment of the voices, stories frozen in time, waiting to be heard.
You step back toward the staircase, leaving the chamber and its murmurs behind. The corridor stretches above you, long and winding, still alive with whispers that fade only slowly. As you climb back into the upper halls, the echoes linger, carried in the quiet rhythm of the castle's heartbeat. The castle endures, its corridors whisper, remembering all who have passed and all who will come.
You emerge from the whispering corridor onto the upper walkways of the castle. The cold night air hits you immediately, carrying the scent of stone, iron, and distant forests. Above, the moon hangs high, pale and luminous, casting its silver light across the battlements. The walls stretch endlessly in either direction, crenellated edges silhouetted against the star-studded sky. Below, the mist-covered valley seems to float in the darkness, silent and vast. The castle towers rise like sentinels, their shadows sliding across the sleeping land. A lone guard walks past, cloak trailing, the soft clink of armor blending with the hiss of wind. He nods briefly, eyes scanning the horizon. In the distance, watchfires flicker along the outer walls, tiny embers glowing like fireflies caught in the night. You follow the battlements, hands brushing the cold stone, feeling the history embedded in every groove and crack. The castle feels alive here, each wall a heartbeat, each tower a pulse, each shadow a whisper of the past. The moonlight catches a carved stone gargoyle at the edge of the wall. Its eyes stare out over the valley, frozen in a grimace that seems almost sentient in the pale light. You pause, studying its form, and wonder how many nights it has watched like this. Centuries of wind, rain, and silence. A sudden gust lifts the edge of your cloak, and you hear the faintest of echoes. Footsteps, perhaps, though none walk beside you. You glance around, but the battlements are empty except for the occasional guard, distant and unaware. The castle stones seem to hum softly under your touch, as if resonating with memories of battles long past. The air is crisp, sharp against your skin. You can see the outlines of the forest beyond the valley, dark waves that rise and fall like some sleeping beast. A distant howl echoes from within, lonely and haunting, carrying across the mist. The sound fades slowly, replaced by the whisper of wind over stone. From this height, the castle's strength is apparent. The towers, the walls, the walkways, all built to endure. Even now, centuries later, they stand as both protection and testament to the lives that moved within them. Soldiers, guards, servants, lords, all shadows now, lingering faintly in the night air. You stop at a corner tower, looking out over the outer walls. The watchfires burn steadily, though faint clouds pass over the moon, dimming the landscape in intervals. It is quiet here, yet not empty. The battlements hold memories of alarm bells, marching boots, the clash of steel, and the cries of men. The wind carries faint voices, echoes of life long gone. You imagine the castle bustling once again, voices shouting orders, children laughing in hidden corners, horses stamping in distant stables. And then, with the moonlight still brushing the walls, you realize the castle itself remembers. It remembers everything. A bell tolls from a distant tower, low and sonorous, its sound echoing across stone and valley. Guards shift in their positions, lanterns glowing, shadows sliding with their movements. You linger a moment longer, taking in the stillness, the history, and the silent vigilance of the walls.
Finally, you turn to descend the battlements, your footsteps joining the rhythm of the castle. The moonlight lingers on the stone, and the wind whispers through the crenellations, carrying secrets of centuries. And as you leave the walkways behind, you feel it. The castle keeps watch. Always.
Descending from the moonlit battlements, you follow a narrow passage that leads deeper into the castle. The air grows colder and heavier, carrying the scent of iron and oil long past their use. The corridor opens into a vast room, the forgotten armory. Racks of weapons stand like silent sentinels, lined along stone walls. Swords with tarnished blades, pikes tipped with rust, and shields bearing faded crests, all frozen in time, untouched for decades, perhaps centuries. The floor is littered with broken helmets and splintered wooden shields, relics of battles that have long since faded from memory. Dust motes swirl in the shafts of moonlight that pierce the high windows, glinting against the cold metal like tiny stars fallen from the sky. The air is eerily quiet, yet it hums with a presence, as if the weapons themselves remember the hands that once held them, the cries that once filled this hall. You step carefully, boots echoing against stone, feeling the weight of history press in around you. A spear leans against a wall, its tip glinting faintly. You reach out, fingertips brushing the iron, and for a brief moment it feels almost warm, as if alive with memory. Along the far wall, a massive suit of armor stands on a wooden frame, complete with gauntlets, breastplate, and helm. The visor is lifted slightly, as though the figure inside might peer out at you at any moment. You step closer, heart quickening, but the armor remains still, silent, a guardian of an age long past. A fallen torch flickers nearby, casting jittering shadows across the walls. The shadows twist around the racks of weapons, elongating the spears and swords into looming figures. You catch the faintest movement from the corner of your eye, a shield shifting slightly, but when you look again, nothing has changed. You notice a door at the far end of the armory, its wood darkened and cracked. It creaks softly when nudged, revealing a small storage chamber filled with ancient gunpowder barrels, rusted locks, and more weapons stacked in orderly chaos. The smell of metal and old smoke is stronger here, almost choking in its intensity. You imagine the armory in its prime, soldiers suiting up, the clang of armor against stone, the smell of sweat and steel filling the air. Orders shouted, footsteps running, weapons lifted and readied for battle. The echo of that time still lingers, muted and distant, yet unmistakably alive in this space. A gust of wind slips through a cracked window, carrying with it the faintest echo of a sword striking shield. You shiver, realizing the castle is full of memories, some vivid, some only barely there, and all waiting quietly for someone to witness them. You run your fingers along a sword's hilt, noticing the engravings, a crown, a sword, a motto in a language long forgotten. The weight of it is tangible, the stories embedded in its steel, the hands that once wielded it, the battles fought in its name. Reluctantly, you step back, leaving the armory behind. The torches flicker one last time, shadows dancing across the stone floor. The room falls silent again, the weapons standing tall and watchful, guardians of a past that refuses to be forgotten. As you leave, The armory seems to breathe in the darkness, waiting for the next footsteps to awaken its memories. And the castle, vast, silent, eternal, keeps its watch over all.
You leave the armory behind, stepping into a narrow stone stairwell that spirals upward. The air is cold and heavy with the scent of moss and old stone. Each step echoes softly, bouncing back from the walls, layering over itself to create a chorus of distant, indistinct voices. The stairwell opens into a circular tower, the Tower of Echoes. The room is vast and empty, walls lined with narrow windows that let in shards of moonlight. The floor is polished stone, smooth and cold under your boots, and the ceiling rises high above, lost in shadow. As you move forward, your footsteps reverberate, multiplying, overlapping, twisting into strange harmonies. A single word seems to slip from your lips, and it returns to you a dozen times, altered, almost unrecognizable. The echoes feel alive, weaving around the room like invisible threads, brushing against your skin. You pause near the center, listening. Each sound, each whisper is a fragment of something long past. Conversations, laughter, commands shouted in urgency, cries of fear, even the faintest hum of music. It is as if the tower remembers every voice that has ever entered it, folding them into its stone walls, storing them for eternity. A window creaks in the wind, and the echoes shift, as if disturbed. You glance out at the moonlit landscape. The mist-covered valley stretches below, forests dark and unyielding, distant watchfires glowing like distant stars. The castle feels smaller from here, yet somehow more alive. The walls of the tower are bare, but carved deep into the stone are marks, initials, symbols, even crude sketches of faces. Some are fresh, others weathered almost beyond recognition. You run your fingers across them, feeling the rough grooves, imagining the hands that left them behind. Stories etched into stone, silent now, waiting to be heard. A gust of wind whistles through the narrow windows, carrying a sound like a faint laugh. You spin, but see nothing. The echoes respond, weaving it into their own chorus, making it impossible to tell where one sound ends and another begins. You move closer to a wall, placing your palm flat against the cold stone. The vibrations are subtle at first, then stronger, as if the tower itself is breathing, alive with memory and sound. It is easy to imagine it speaking, recounting centuries of life and death, joy and sorrow, to anyone patient enough to listen. A sudden clatter echoes from above, a shutter banging, or a stone dislodging, perhaps. The sound reverberates, stretched and twisted, returning again and again in distorted forms. The tower seems to hum with energy, a living archive of every footstep, every word, every whispered secret. You step back from the wall, letting the echoes wash over you. It is disorienting, haunting, beautiful. The voices fade slightly as you approach the spiral staircase leading back down, leaving only the faint hum of memory in their wake. One last glance from the tower's center shows the moonlight painting silver patterns across the floor. The Tower of Echoes stands patient and eternal, a keeper of voices and stories, guarding its secrets in silence. As you descend, the chorus of echoes follows you faintly, blending with the rhythm of the castle, ancient, watchful, alive.
and the castle endures, listening, remembering, always.